Brilliant. So today is the 25th of May, 2022, and we're going to go through the Flux Dev meeting. So let's start by going through the first point, which is review current development focus and blockers. I think I'll share my screen quickly. Yeah. Let me just, there we go. Brilliant. I'll quickly just go through the board, especially on things that we kind of done recently. There's a lot of things like the OCI has quite a few entries there. I don't think everything is here, but yeah, there's quite a few things about the OCI. There's a few things about the libgit2 that is now enabled by default. There's a in-flight PR that Sunsky is working on around kind of improving a few other things on managed transport and trying to remove all the dependencies from unmanaged transport. So when folks are using managed transport, they won't need to rely on internal data of Git2Go. So that should remove quite a few panic cases on that perspective. So that is one for that. Well, there's, in terms of focus, I think there's still a few things around the rollout of the unified standards in Helm controller and the image reflector controller. And there's still a few things on OCI that Sol and Marcus are working on. Do you guys want to kind of mention anything around those topics, the OCI or any of the unified standards rollout?
I don't have anything open right now. I know Sule has 1 or 2 PRs open that we might want to get merged. But other than that,
yeah, I have 2 PR left. Sunny is reviewing them actually. We talked about it a few minutes ago. Yeah, well, I'm ready to look at his comments, but I'll be done today.
Brilliant. And I think that the same as well goes to the PR that Sunsky is working on. If folks could have a look on that today as well, that would be brilliant. There's quite a few changes there, but yeah, I do think that will improve a lot the work with Git. Cool. All right. In terms of what's happening on the way to GA, anyone wants to pick up that topic? Mention anything around that? Well, we can quickly go through the board and kind of just mention a few things that are related to that. One of the things I'm trying to kind of focus on is trying to plug a lot of the Git related issues, things that are open and things that were kind of missing documentation or have some sort of the test coverage is not quite there. So a few things that were kind of improved recently and still focusing on that is, for example, the proxy tests for libgit2. So before we were only testing for HTTPS proxy because unmanaged transport did not support HTTP proxy. So now we pretty much actually just create a PR for that to test all the 3 types of proxies. So no proxy, HTTP proxy, and HTTPS proxy. Another thing that I think Sunny mentioned the other day was if you had one of those sets, so for example, if you had an environment variable for HTTP proxy on your local machine and you try to run make tests, you would have the test failing. So that's something that I'm creating a PR recently. Well, I'm going to create a PR after this to fix that kind of thing. But it is to pretty much plug all those little gaps we might have either on tests or on reliability of the tests we have and so on. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it in terms of what I'm kind of looking into the Git aspect. As I mentioned before, the rollout of unified standards is still going on for the Helm controller. It is working on that, and so he's doing the same for the image reflector controller. Yeah. Anyone wants to mention anything else about the GA, or shall we go to the next topic?
So we added OCI to the GA roadmap, right?
Sorry, what was the question?
We added the OCI RFCs to the GA roadmap. So basically GA is blocked until we ship OCI across Flux controllers.
Yes, I believe that both of them are there. Well, the Helm support is definitely there, and I think the manifest support is also, yeah.
Oh, okay, so that's something people should be aware of.
Yeah, on that point, is this something we still need to, do we need to go through and have another look on the RFC? Is there any plan changes? Do you have any plan changes to that before then?
Well, there are two follow-up issues for this one. For the Helm OCI, there are two follow-up issues on dependencies and on custom certificates. I think we can have them for GA, but yeah, just so you know.
All right. Do we have issues for that? Issues created tracking?
Yes. Dependencies are a must. We really need to sort that out.
Yeah, on dependencies, we can deal on, well, we have no dependencies on other projects, so we can do this quite, well, we just need someone to work on it. And I will do that, but for custom certificates, we are dependent on Helm because it has to be first integrated there.
Brilliant. Okay, any more points around GA and dependencies for GA?
So who is working on image reflector controller, the refactoring?
Sunny is working on that.
So did we finish notification controller? I guess so, right?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, did we? Oh, close this one then.
It was one of the first because it didn't have any complex conditions or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in terms of overall project structure and how packages, etc., are structured, it could use some. Yeah.
All right, so leave that as an up next, just for us to have a less check in terms of changes we've done recently to the standards and stuff like that. But I'll leave a ticket open for us to review that, if that's okay.
Yep. So the what's left is customized controller and image automation controller, right? Those have no case status conditions at all.
Yeah, I think I'm missing a ticket that for customized controller, so I'll create that after this, so we have an issue for that as well. Cool. Yeah. So on top of that, there's still a few things around like documentation and guides that we might want to kind of break down a bit further to see if we can get more help from the community to do those things. So, for example, the developer guides for contributing, like it would be good to understand what else we're missing within that space. If anyone has ideas or suggestions on that point, it would be good for us to kind of drill down on that. Yeah.
So we need, besides refactoring the controllers, we also need to rewrite all the API docs in the format we settled for
Source controller.
source controller. Yeah.
All right. So what I would do is on the issues that I created for the unified standards, I will add that as one point for each one of them. So we make sure we do that as part of that process.
Yes. Anyways, there are too much changes to do this in a single pull request. So like for source control, need someone to do the refactoring and then another pull request to rewrite the docs. So there could be, I don't know, separate issues on the controllers repo with the dependency between them, right? Because the new docs should mention all the status conditions and so on. So you cannot write the docs before we do the refactoring. It needs to come after.
Yeah, that makes sense. Another point that we have that I think we kind of briefly talked about, but we didn't really go into details, is about the incident management and troubleshooting guides. Like, is this something we can link on our FAQs, or is there anything else that we need to put on FAQs or create? Is there specific scenarios we believe we need to documentate?
What I would do, I think, is after that the specs have been rewritten, is go over the guides in general and see where there's overlap, because I think with how the new documentation around the controller and API objects is that a lot of the core information about how to operate and work with an object is encapsulated there, while part of the information is also included in the guides at the moment, which means that we have duplicate content. And I think based on this, it will become more obvious in what's lacking in the guides and other parts.
Cool, yeah, that makes sense. So what I'll do is I will kind of create a linking between them and summarize that point on it as well. So there's more information in the ticket. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I think those are the key things. We have a few things about cloud-specific guidelines. Do we know if there's any gaps of, because I know we have some documentation for each one of those cloud providers at least. Is there any specific scenario that, or guideline that we're missing? Is there any of those things that we can just maybe enumerate and kind of set as a good first issue for folks to create?
There is going to be one. I don't know how relevant it is today, but Azure is going to move away from AD pod identity towards web identity tokens. So basically the same way that AWS and GKE solves it today. It's not GA yet, but it's public preview. So that could be if somebody, I'll probably end up doing it later if nobody else does it, but that's going to be one thing that could be a good first issue if somebody wants to solve it.
Is this, do they also call that workload identity?
Yeah, workload identities, yeah.
Okay, then the integration is already there. I was about to wonder if this was a third or fourth identity thing from that.
No.
Okay.
Have you read, is the documentation already written for this, or?
I think it's included as because on the or at least on part of the customized controller, because what I did was when wait, what was the timeline? I think I first started working on the bucket support in the source controller, and then figured out how to do the authentication there, including the workloads, and then copied the same approach to the customized controller. And I think while I did that for the customized controller, I reordered part of the docs there to basically contain example entries for every viable option there that exists. So I think part of the documentation may already exist.
Yeah, I think we just need to go through it because it might not be relevant today because I think that the schedule that Microsoft had was a bit longer than I expected. But there are some Azure guides that still only mention AD pod identity. But I don't know how many people are actually using workload identities right now even.
All right, so what I'll do is I'll go through this ticket about this issue. I'll break down per account, and I will break down the things that we need to document for each one. And in the case of Azure, I will break down per type of authentication as well. So we kind of have like a really good view of where we are on the documentation of each one of those points.
Anyway, we should definitely add workload identity to the Azure end-to-end tests.
Yeah, I agree.
Because yeah, if we document it, but we don't know if it breaks.
No.
But
That's something you can assign to me because I am a heavy Azure user. So, and I wrote the initial end-to-end test anyway. So if anybody wants to just put that on me, I'll do it because I need to figure out a bunch of stuff with workload identities anyways, because I'm doing a bunch of migrations now.
Cool.
So
Yeah.
it fits my schedule.
Brilliant.
So let's add an action item for Philip to research the Azure workload identity and update end-to-end tests before docs.
Sounds like a good idea.
Brilliant. Cool.
Wait. Going back to that issue. So
I
now,
found an example, by the way. There is an entry on managed identity with client ID in the customized controller spec, Philip. So there is an example somewhere out there.
Yeah, but that's managed service. That's MSI.
yes.
So MSI and workload identities are separate things.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah, that's why I was a bit confused because workload identity is like doing the same thing with service account tokens that AWS does today with OIDC servers.
Now I'm confused. Okay, I will look into it.
This is why I have customers.
Okay, so going back to this issue, we do have right now cloud-specific guides for AWS and Azure. Someone contributed the AWS guide with code commit and so on, and that's how we discovered Go-Git has other bugs around AWS, which are not the same with the one on Azure, but libgit2 works with AWS. We are still lacking any docs around Google Cloud, even if I don't know, we have tons of users on Google Cloud, no issues with Flux there. We should have a guide on, setting up workload identity, doing source decryption, and image automation based on the new container registry. So Google has deprecated GCR. It's now called Artifactory something. Flux works with Artifactory, but I'm not sure what people had to do for it. I'm convinced that IAM roles or whatever are different from GCR. So
They are subtly different. I think that we did actually document that somewhere, but
Yeah, it's
Um,
probably it's scattered information all over the place, right?
there's also Google Cloud Source Repository, which I don't think we have anything documented for.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that works or how it works and so on. So yeah, someone definitely has to take ownership of this. Let me message Daniel.
I pressed on the magic button.
Can you mute him?
I just did.
Oh, okay. So yeah, like with AWS, we should write a guide that shows how you can set up Flux with the Google Git service, KMS, and Artifactory thing, which is the new container registry. Kingdom, do you know, do they support OCI artifacts? Can you push Helm charts to the Google Artifactory?
I think that is one of the selling points of Artifact Registry, yeah, or Artifact Repository, whatever it's called.
Mhm.
The new one.
Okay, so we need to test it and see how that works.
So what I was thinking as well is actually duplicate, but I'll kind of break this down even further by the authentication methods, especially on Azure. But one thing that I was thinking is duplicate this for end-to-end tests and make sure that we have that same coverage. So everything that we have documented for all the supported cloud kind of guides and so on, all the tests, the end-to-end tests that we have, or we're missing. So we have a ticket to track that.
Sadly, we only got Azure credits.
Oh, okay. Okay. So
We don't have. I don't know, Daniel cannot respond today, but we.
I
start
followed
to-
up with them yesterday.
And
No answer since, but I
Okay.
tried again.
Cool.
So
Yeah.
on that point, what I'll do then, so I'll create one for GA, which is only Azure, and then I'll create another one which is cloud specific and put a caveat that we don't have the minutes to do those tests now, but that is on the roadmap. Once we have the minutes, the backlog is there.
Yep. So everything we have in a cloud specific guide should be backed up by end-to-end tests. And as far as I know, what we have in the Azure guide is covered right now by the end-to-end test that Philip wrote. Now for GKE and Azure and AWS, I run tests manually before releases, but this is not sustainable. We have to reach out to CNCF, get credits, and automate all of that because it takes ages to run it. Not to mention, I run it on my personal accounts. So.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. All right, I'll create some issues to track that. I updated this already, but I'll go through that in a bit more detail later. Cool. Apart from what it's here, can you guys think about anything else we might need for GA? So what I'm seeing here is documentation overall. There is some small things on here and there about like some bugs, mostly related to Git. There is the OCI implementation for manifests, the last few things on Helm, the unified standards, if I haven't said that already, and that's mostly it. Consolidation of Git implementations.
Yeah, I think it's a lot anyway.
It is, yes. Okay.
Couple of months worth of work.
Yeah. Cool. All right, that is good then. I will make sure I'll play this for the next session. And yeah, anything else around GA, or shall we move on to the next point on the agenda?
Let's move on.
Cool. So the next point is review org admins. Does anyone want to step up?
Yeah, this is a follow-up to the governance updates. So basically, we made the former oversight committee the org admins now. And the question is if we want to change the setup there. If anyone from the co-maintainers, for example, would like to step up and have access, or are we good with the setup right now?
So at the minute, who is org admins?
Currently, that's Stefan, Hide, and Michael. Also, Chris A. from the CNCF, and there's a Linux Foundation account. It has access to all the keys as well. And we sort of said in the new governance doc that we would review this every year and just make sure that it is up to date, and that we try to, but now everyone is in the same time zone mostly. I think that could also be a concern, but also that we don't make the team too wide nor too narrow.
Does anyone think that that is a bit of a bottleneck, or do you guys think that we have enough numbers on that group?
How often do we delete repos and create repos? Once, twice per year. I think
There's also the triage role thing, but that's something you also wanted to change. That would be one of the next agenda item.
yeah.
But
So
it's not very often.
I want to delete the triage team.
Yeah, let's get to that in a second.
Okay.
But in general, I would agree that we don't have like groundbreaking changes all the time. But I just thought, because the concern from the TOC back then was, these people weren't elected into this team, and I just wanted to make sure we as a group review this, and if we're happy, we can move on and just say we check this off.
So
Okay,
another question
in
on
this
this.
case, I have the rights to press buttons, so my vote is kind of not important, but I'm fine with how it is as it is right now. But I'm also happy to accept someone else into the group, which maybe has kind of availability in another time. So although based on experience, I know that requests I handle are almost non-existent and almost fulfilled within seconds after someone requests it. So is there a need? I don't know.
That works for me. I just wanted to make sure that we cover it. Good. Stefan, your floor on the triage role.
Yes, so I propose we delete the triage team and give everyone which is a organization member triage role. Like everyone who is invited and has accepted to be part of the Flux organization should be able to, label issues, label PRs.
Would it then be easier to just assign the triage role to like the maintainers group? I think it is.
Yes, that's what I'm proposing. So we delete
I thought you. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, delete the triage team. We don't need that. And then for the maintainers group, which is everybody in the org, 17 members, add here.
I'm not sure I understand the proposal. Like currently it says like project members are basically org members, and the only other benefit they have is the triage role. So are you saying we should add those people to the maintainers team? Like everyone, like every project member should also be a member of that team?
No. So we have a team that contains all people which are in the Fluxity organization. And that team has no rights on anything. You have to be a repo maintainer to be able to label issues, do whatever in that thing. Right? Also create branches and so on. I'm not proposing for everybody in the org to be able to do anything on any repo, but give only the triage role to everybody. So anyone in the org can help us out with labeling, I don't know, moving an issue to discussions.
To everybody, not only to org members, but to like everyone on GitHub.
No, everybody in the Fluxity organization, not everybody on GitHub. That's impossible to do it.
I see. But how would we do that? Like, like simply, right?
There
You would have
already
to
is
go
a
to.
group. So if you're being invited into the Flux organization, you're added to a group. The group is called maintainers or something very neutral and generic. And that group has no special permissions attached to it at the moment. I don't even think it's attached to any repository. It's just a pool of, hey, you have been invited into the organization because of this reason. It's kind of is your first entry into the org. And at the moment, there is another special group. There is another special group which has assigned triads permissions in any Flux2 repository. But that group only has like 3 or 6 members or something. So the limited capabilities you gather by having the triage role would be better shared by all members so that they can just do all the meta work while they spot it.
So I think if we review the governance docs, that is what we say that we would do, or what we say that we are doing, that everyone who's a project member would be on the triage team. So the team itself functionally serves no role. And I agree, we should delete it.
Just so I understand what's happening, I'm a little bit confused. The link that Daniel sent right now in the chat, the latest link, that is the link to the maintainers team, and that team is basically useless. Is that what's happening? That team is basically useless, and everyone who's on the triage team, everyone basically should be moved to the triage team, as in they should get their roles and responsibilities of triage, right? Is that what's the
maintainers
proposal
team
as well?
is a list of everyone who is an actual maintainer of a repo. There is a lower rung since our second two governance changes ago, I think, where we added the project member status, which is the lowest rung of a contributor that requires only 2 sponsors and some contributions. I think it's a low bar. So anyone can become a member, and those folks get triage role for their trouble. So the list of people who are in the org is the list of project members. Maintainers is a slightly more exclusive group.
Yeah, so in effect, everybody that's invited to the Flux organization, once they accept the invitation, currently we have 16 members. Once you accept the invitation, you'll be able to help us out with triage. You'll not be able to, push to master or whatever, right? It's not that. It's just dealing with issues, pull requests, labeling, moving things from issues to discussions. So there are not destructive operations. In the triage role, you cannot do harm to the project. You cannot delete, PRs or branches or stuff like that.
I'm still a little confused here, because the Fluxity org has 22 people in it. And then we have the maintainers team, that Daniel just linked to, which we are specifically not talking about right now. And then we have the triage team, which only has 7 members, which doesn't comply with our governance stock. So what are you suggesting? I'm still confused. Like, you cannot give people, as far as I know, people that are in an organization triage role on everything in it, can you?
Of course.
So just by like a single switch of,
No,
or
I have
click
to
of a
select
button?
all the repos.
Okay, so you have to go ahead, select all the repos and say this person has triage role now.
No, this group has threshold, and everybody, all these 7 members are already in the maintainers group. There are 7
No, I don't
members.
think that's true, because I just looked through the community rules document again, and the triage rule and the membership of the FluxCD organization is lower level because you're a project member then and not a maintainer than the maintainers group. So
Yes.
the maintainers group is another group of people. Then I think the problem is that there somewhere is a misalignment in synchronization of the number of people in the group, or people being put into
No, it
group
is
A.
not. So we have CNCF people in the Flux organization, which are, they don't do anything on the project. So that's why I didn't add them to the maintainers.
Isn't that a problem that the maintainers group is not included in all repositories, and therefore also doesn't have triage right? So the problem should be settled by giving the maintainers group triage rights on all repositories.
That's what I said 20 minutes ago, yes.
Okay, I thought you were talking about deleting the triage group.
Yes.
No,
Add
but
all the
that's,
repos.
but that's different.
So
You,
add all the
you
repos.
have people like Stacy who would be added to the triage team.
Yeah.
And then that team would have triage role on all the repos, right? We wouldn't have to add her to the maintainers team. I wouldn't want to, right? Because it has different use.
No, Stacy is a maintainer of the website, right?
No,
No?
currently not.
Good.
So the idea for the idea for the, I mean, eventually, if she wants to do that, great. But the idea behind the governance change was that we have project member as a low-level entry to the project. So you have helped out some, and it can also be people who, let's say, just give loads and loads of talks or whatever. They don't need to do code contributions, but we want to add them as a project member. And maybe they don't want to be maintainer, and that's fine, but they can still help out labeling issues. So right now, Stacy said, I want to be a project member first and not a maintainer just yet.
Okay, so, okay, good. I will add all people to the triage team then. And don't delete it. Right,
Okay.
so we don't confuse. I can do that. It's like, I have to add 10 more people. Currently, there are only 7 here, and yeah, we need to keep this up to date.
Right, thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much.
That was tough.
Cool. Well, I think the next topic is Terraform provider future. I don't know who is.
Yeah, that's mine.
Yeah, go for it then.
Yeah. So I created an issue in the Terraform provider repo. I know there's been, I guess the history is kind of long with the Terraform provider. And the way it is today is far from optimal, really, when it comes to upgrading and maintaining, well, Flux and how it's bootstrapped. While at KubeCon, I had some good discussions with people at HashiCorp about some of my ideas. In the issue that I linked, I outline a couple of, or at least 2 different options of where you could kind of go from here. After some discussions with the HashiCorp developers, they kind of pushed me into basically building a single or two resources that does a bunch of stuff. So kind of a resource that does the Flux Bootstrap command and manages all the resources. The issue is that there are a bunch of technical things that you have to solve, but I've gotten some good connections with some other provider developers at HashiCorp. So hopefully we first have to solve these technical issues, but my idea there is that we could add a new Terraform resource basically that would simplify the bootstrapping process a lot more, but it kind of depends on solving the technical issues first before that work can be done. Yeah, I don't know how much in detail I should go into it and how many people are interested, but if anybody wants to get involved in that type of work, they're very welcome to also get involved. Or if there are any comments, yeah.
So are we looking at switching to the official provider for Kubernetes?
What official? No, so the idea is to create a new Terraform resource in the Flux Terraform provider that instead of having multiple resources, that one that applies some resources, one that does Git commits and all that, we do one resource that does everything. The problem is that the reason there isn't in any Terraform provider a Kubernetes multi-doc resource. So there's no Kubernetes provider in the kubectl provider, the Kubernetes provider, whatever, that is able to manage multi-doc YAML, because there is a bunch of issues with the Terraform state telling it that it should like reapply resources. But the guys at HashiCorp told me that it actually probably is possible to solve this issue. So we're first going to try to solve that issue together without having to involve the Terraform core team. And then after that, after we prove that that actually works, we can create a single resource where now the installation is cluster access, Git repo. It does the provider or the resource does the work for you, basically. And that would then use the same code that the Flux Bootstrap command would use.
Cool.
But the biggest issue there is actually the state tracking, which is kind of what I'm starting now to try to figure out how the hell I'm going to do this. I've done a bunch of different tests and I haven't found a solution, but they claim there is a solution. So hopefully they know what they're talking about.
Great. There is also, we could also offer an alternative to the Terraform provider for Bootstrap using the community maintained Helm charts and use the Helm provider in Terraform as an alternative for those that they want to, not do the GitOps Bootstrap where you store the Flux configuration in Git.
Yeah, exactly, because that's kind of the downside of not using using the Helm chart is that you don't have the option to commit the manifests to the Bootstrap repo.
Yeah, and you also you cannot do the upgrade of Flux in an unintended way using, I don't know, GitHub Actions or CI where it doesn't touch the cluster. You have to go into Terraform, bomb the Helm chart versions, have Terraform connected to the cluster and run them there. But I'm guessing this is quite easy to write because we just use the upstream Helm provider and maybe put that example in the Flux community organization and link from our Terraform provider and explain people, hey, this Terraform provider does the Bootstrap in a GitOps way, but if you want to do Helm things, and if you got caught into, you know, the complexity of our provider and what we do here with Git commits and so on, here is a easier alternative using Helm, but then you know, explain a little bit the differences.
Yeah.
So, you know, people that are must use Terraform, they don't get stuck, frustrated because, yeah.
No,
Also,
I agree. That's a good
GitLab
idea.
provider has issues and so on, right? So it doesn't really work everywhere.
No, but I think adding some even to the Terraform provider. Going, you found the Terraform provider. You want the simplest method. Look here. I think that's a good idea of adding that type of documentation. Just giving people, you know, the escape hatch of the barrier to being as small as possible, but also explaining the different downsides or upsides of choosing one or the other.
Yeah.
I agree. Great. Yeah, but I'll try to share kind of status next week or the week after that, depending on how far I get along with the work I'm doing.
Great, thank you, Philip.
Awesome. I think the last point now is around Flux V1, and I think Kingdom, you raised this this point.
Yeah, I didn't realize that there might be a regression in one of the upgrades that we did for 1.25. I haven't been able to reproduce it anywhere, but one Google Cloud source repository user says that it no longer works. And I think that after the discussion we had today, it's probably more important to validate that it works on Flux V2. But I just wanted to raise it here for awareness. If I'm going to set up an environment to reproduce that issue or try to reproduce that issue, I suppose I should also test Flux V2.
Yes, for sure.
That makes sense. Yeah, I'll also have a look on that specific item, because at least for, well, working with on Flux2 and doing a lot of things on libgit2, I noticed that some specific problems are very kind of hard to pick up. So for example, the recent one that we found was with Bitbucket only on unmanaged transports and only for HTTPS. So I wonder if there's any kind of nuance to this specific case as well, but I'll have a look and then we can have a chat offline about it.
Okay.
Cool. And yeah, on top of that, yeah, I think that we ran out of items on the agenda, but we still have 7 minutes. So is there anything else anyone wants to talk about?
It was nice meeting people at KubeCon.
I wish I've been there this time around, but I'll definitely be there for the next one.
Same.
Yeah, my feedback after KubeCon is that Flux adoption has exploded compared to, I don't know, 2.5 years ago in San Diego. It was overwhelming in a good way. So yeah, people are really excited about Flux version 2. They really like our API. I got feedback like, oh, we don't need the UI for Flux. We have Lens. We have so many other things that, you know, because now we have custom resources for everything. There are many UIs and IDs and console things that, you know, show you all the status of custom resources and so on. So that was like really, really nice to see happy Flux users, which yeah, we don't get on Slack because usually people come into Slack when they have a bug, so, or when they have some misconfiguration. So we don't actually interact with Flux users that, you know, had no issues with our docs, have everything set up and they run Flux happily. So that was really, really awesome to see. So yeah, congrats to everyone here and the whole Flux team for for a great achievement.
Brilliant. I think that's it then. So, well, thank you very much, you guys, and see you later. Have a nice day.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thanks. See
Bye,
you
everyone.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.